You can see this storm moving very closely into the Big Bend area. That is exactly where Steinhatchee is. It is in Taylor County right there. That's an area that we're watching very closely tonight as we wait to get Jules on the line with us. I do want to go to CNN's Derek Van Dam because there is now an extreme wind warning that is in place for exactly along where these areas are in Steinhatchee. That is in the Big Bend area. Derek Van Dam, what can you tell us about this extreme wind warning and what it means now for people who did choose to stay behind, like Jules?
All right, so Caitlin, you know, these extreme wind warnings are reserved by the National Weather Service to only issue them at the most important moments, the most extreme moments for the approach of a storm of this magnitude. They really reserve them because the verbiage talks about how you need to treat this like an extreme wind as if a tornado was approaching your area. So what do you do when a tornado comes knocking on your door? You go to the interior of your home, away from windows. You protect yourself by putting blankets, perhaps even bedding over top of you. You need to take action to protect your life and the life of your others in your home with you. Now, the safest place that they're talking about during this extreme wind warning is, in a reinforced interior. That's maybe perhaps under a table, if that's not a possibility. So this extreme wind warning, again, it's reserved for these most extreme moments. And that is what we anticipate to take place just east of Apalachicola, where I'm located, along the Big Bend. We're feeling the brunt of tropical storm force winds that are teetering on hurricane force, but it's a miracle that we still have power. That is not the same for hundreds and thousands of people here across the state of Florida that will be plunged into darkness as the most intense part of Hurricane Helene makes its way onshore here in the coming hours. We're really focusing in on that Taylor County area, a very low-lying, susceptible area to storm surge, but the catastrophic wind threat, the potential to peel back roofs off of buildings, to topple structures and even topple power poles and trees is real, Caitlin. And this storm, it's coming. And if you haven't evacuated, Derek, now is the time to take shelter.
Can I ask you, because this warning, they're saying treat this like a tornado warning. I grew up in Alabama. Obviously, we had tornadoes very regularly during tornado season, but they're more sporadic. Like, it happens and then it's gone. When it's a hurricane and you're being told to treat it like a tornado and it's a sustained storm, I mean, what kind of difference does that make for people who are trying to shelter in place?
Well, think about a tornado that can be so erratic, coming from Alabama, that they can often hop and skip and jump over properties. Well, that's not what happens with hurricanes. I mean, if you look at the diameter of the hurricane winds that are associated with Helene, it's over 100 miles. So in essence, you could think of that as a low-end EF0 or even an EF1 tornado approaching, but over 100 miles swath, right? So that's significant, whereas a tornado would only be a couple of 100 yards across, creating that consolidated damage path. But a hurricane of this magnitude, this size, and this intensity will create what a tornado with similar winds would create, but over a much larger area. My favorite hats. It's ridden out so many hurricanes. I'll get that later. All right, guys. So now as I speak and my hat flies off the top of my head, we're starting to hear these familiar sounds. And just, you can see some of the debris starting to float behind me. I mean, this is what's going to increase in severity here in the coming hours. And now we need to be very mindful of what's upwind from us. And, I'm seeing this building behind me with metal roofs and wooden pallets on the ground. These are things that can become projectiles in the strongest of winds. We're very cognizant of that. We have the ability to get in and shelter in place if we need to. But this is the reason why officials here in Franklin County enforce this mandatory evacuation of the entire county. And if you chose not to actually evacuate from this hurricane, it's now time to treat it as if it's an approaching tornado and shelter in place. Caitlin.
Derek, sorry about your hat. We can replace the hat. Please stay safe as you're out there now under this this extreme wind warning that we're tracking very closely. We'll continue to check in with Derek and make sure he and his crew are safe while they're on the ground. Jules Carl is also here with me. As I just mentioned, she is sheltering in place with her family in Steinhatchee, Florida. Jules, I know you rode out the last storm pregnant last year. You have baby Kai now as you're sheltering with the rest of your family. But you hear from Derek there saying that there is this rare extreme wind warning that is now in place exactly where you live. And they're saying basically to treat this like it's a tornado. Just tell me how this is different from other storms you've seen and what you're seeing tonight.
It's funny you mentioned it being like a tornado because with us originally being from Kansas, that's something we've experienced quite a bit of. And we were both originally storm chasers before moving to Florida about 10 years ago. So we've got it set up, interior room in the house. We got a safe place for the kids. We got a closet set up for them to be in. And of course, life jackets just in case, God forbid, the water does get up to the house. But we just recently got new hurricane straps and had the house re-leveled and lifted above the flood levels. So we should be safe here.
And of course, those hurricanes
as safe as possible.
Those hurricane straps are what help, further secure the roof for wind when they are picking up as high as they are. I mean, does it feel different tonight from what you're seeing outside? Can you tell a difference from the storms that you've seen in the past in the last 10 years that you've been there?
No, not really. Not yet anyway. The water's still doing the same thing it basically did with the last two that we rode through. Granted, we're in a more protected spot where this house sits. We're kind of behind a giant hill. So we don't take the full force of the wind here at this house, thankfully, which is part of the reason we felt like we could stay. I know like with Debbie, we've even got a camper out front and it wasn't even rocking at all during Debbie. So it might get rough here tonight, but I don't think that we're not gonna blow away. Not at this house anyway.
A lot of people who are watching are wondering, how do you make the decision whether or not to evacuate or to stay? Obviously, it's different for families. You've got pets, you've got your belongings and whatnot that people think about. But how do you make that decision? It's a tough one.
It's not easy. Like you said, it's tough. You weigh a lot of different factors before you make the decision. And of course, my husband and I, since last Monday, have been going back and forth on whether we should be trying to get out of here or stay. But we feel like as big as this storm is, and with at least the knowledge that we have with storms, we'd rather be in a town where we know our elevation, we know our weak points with our wind and our water and that kind of thing, and have resources. And we've got friends in town as well, which are basically like family here. This whole town is like family. So between that and our pets, we just felt like it would be wiser to stay, knowing our grounds here.
How is baby Kai doing tonight?
He's doing great. He's just sitting in his bouncer making his cooing sounds.
How many of your neighbors decided to stay back as well?
Actually quite a few of them, even ones that hadn't stayed for previous storms. And I think, again, the sheer size of this thing is part of what was the deciding factor for them, because most of them, even where they go, I mean, if you go inland, the wind rating on the houses and stuff is less than what it is out there on the coast like we're at. So it's almost like if you try and go inland, you could be going to a building that's less rated for less wind, even though this thing is going to be, hurricane force all the way up into Georgia.
And Jules, Steinhatchee, I mean, better than anyone else watching, it's a low-lying place. And we heard from officials there earlier.
It is, yeah. There's a lot of floodplain.
Yeah, a lot of that. And officials there earlier sent out a pretty scary message saying that people who stayed behind, they said, use a permanent marker and write your name and your date of birth on your arm or on your leg in case that's needed. A pretty chilling message. They didn't really have to spell it out. I just wonder how you hear something like that.
The first time hearing that, it was absolutely terrifying. The first time I heard that was with Adelia. And of course I was, 34 weeks pregnant at the time. And so that was really terrifying, knowing as heavy and big as I was, it's not going to be easy to try and get away from waves or whatever. And that was really chilling at first. But then after making it through Adelia and seeing where the weak spots in town and where the high water was in town, after that, I feel more comfortable with this one.
Jules, obviously we want you to stay safe. Baby Kai, stay safe. Everyone, the pets, everyone who's there. Please keep us updated. And obviously, I know you said the lights were flickering earlier as the wind was picking up. So we're just hoping for all of you guys to stay safe. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.